Alright, greetings to everyone. My name is Engineer Citizen Stable, and I'm going to take us through forklift load capacity chart explanations. Now, we find ourselves in an industry where we have a lot of forklift operators, a lot of forklifts in the industry now. But the limitations or the observations that have come up is that most forklift operators know how to maneuver their forklifts, but don't know how to determine the capacity or the maximum loads that their forklifts can take at certain configurations. So that's the aim of our class today. So why is it important for us to understand the load capacity calculations of our forklifts? Now, research has shown in the past years that forklifts have been involved in fatalities and near misses as a result of forklift operators not being able to determine the capacity of their forklift at certain configurations. Based on the load center of the load that they are picking, based on the height at which they are taking the load, or based on the attachments that they have on the forklift. All these are factors that have to be considered when determining the capacity of a forklift at a certain given time. So what we mean by a forklift's load capacity is the capacity or the weight the forklift can lift at a certain given load center, at a certain given load height. At every configuration of the forklift, there is a certain capacity that the forklift can lift. It acts on the principles of physics, where the moment, so depending on the weight that is in front, depending on how high we are taking the load, will determine whether the forklift will be able to withstand that load. The forklift has a counterweight at the back, and that is what counters the weight that we lift in front. So when the load that we are picking in front exceeds the weight at the back, then they can be tipping over. Aside the weight, another factor that comes to play is the distance, that's the height, and that causes a turning effect. So when the height plus the weight in front of the forklift exceeds the moment at the back of the forklift that is being given to the forklift based on the counterweight, then there can be a tipping over. Most manufacturers of forklifts consider this theta-torta principle in designing the load capacity chart that guide forklift operators in determining whether the load that they are picking, whether the heights to which they are taking their loads, the forklift that they are operating can withstand such conditions. Manufacturers provide the forklift data plates based on optimal conditions such as level ground conditions, standard forks, minimum mast height, and no attachments. Now, what do this mean? The forklift chart that we are having, for every forklift data plate that we have, the capacity that we are having is assumed, the forklift manufacturer is assuming that the forklift that we are operating is operating on a even ground with no slope. The forklift is operating at the minimum mast height. The forklift is operating with a standard forks, and there are no attachments. Once you go, your forklift has attachments incorporated, there should be a capacity chart for that attachment that you are using. So you see on some forklift charts where they will tell you that when the side shifter is being applied, reduce the capacity by maybe 200 kg. When you are using this attachment, maybe a hopper, a basket, a man cage, reduce the capacity by these factors. So these are some of the things that manufacturers consider in determining the capacity of their forklift.